Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Ask a Leader track, bringing our purpose to life through our members and the community. I'm Felicia Acco, and I'll be your moderator for this evening. I apologize for the sun coming in right on cue here, but hopefully you can deal with that. I'm privileged to have two of our senior leaders with us, Tom Berquist and Doug Marshall, and they will be our hosts for this session. I'm personally excited to hear both of them speak, as I believe both of them really represent this track extremely well. We'll start though by having both Doug and Tom do a self-introduction and then get to some questions. So speaking of those questions, as you listen to them talk, please feel free to use the right side of your screen and have questions submitted, and we'll be curating those for a little bit later. So Doug, how about if I throw it to you and you can start off by introducing yourself?
Great, thanks, Felicia. Good to see you all tonight. Thank you for staying with us as the sun seems to have come out for a nice Northwest evening. Again, I'm Doug Marshall. I'm the Chief Digital and Product Officer, and as that title suggests, our team is responsible for all of our digital member experiences, the products and services that everyone uses to improve, our members use to improve the financial well-being, as well as our data management strategy, and then our innovation efforts. A bunch of work I'm really pleased to be able to lead. So with that, Tom, how about yourself?
Thanks, Doug. And I'd like to just echo what Doug said. Thank you for spending some time with us this evening to learn more about your credit union. My name is Tom Berquist. I lead our marketing efforts, digital marketing analytics, also our communications work, social impact, philanthropy and affinity programs, and also help out on the strategy side of things for the entire co-op. Felicia, back to you.
Thanks, Tom. So 2021, as we think back on last year, was certainly an interesting year. Doug and Tom, I'm curious, do you have a couple of highlights that you'd like to share that really kind of sum that year up? Tom, I'll start to throw that over to you.
Yeah, that's a fun question that's a fun question to think about. And when I think about things related to our purpose, financial health, and the community, a couple of things stand out. One, I think about our financial education effort. I think you saw in the state of the credit union that we helped delivered courses and things like that to over 13,000 members. But in particular, something I'm really proud about is the continual improvement and the effectiveness of our financial health check program. These are one-on-one sessions that members can schedule with our financial health check experts. They help folks build savings plans, build emergency savings, or maybe they want to save for a home or a car. And we have seen the success rate of that program increase significantly. In fact, when we started the program several years ago, we saw about 20% of members taking action during those phone conversations, starting a plan. Now we're up to about 60% of the people going through the program that are taking action. That's really exciting to see that continued improvement in terms of how we're changing the program to better adapt and serve the needs of our members, and then our members taking up on that. So it's been fantastic to see. I think another thing, and we'll probably talk more about this, is just we did a fair amount of work last year to really rework our philanthropy strategy, both for the giving from the co-op and also from our foundation. And we're really operating from the space between that, at the intersection of financial health, financial well-being, and equity. And I think it'll be great to see how that rolls out in this coming year. I'll turn it. I'll ask Doug kind of what stood out for him in 2021.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. There, as we've all said, there was so much last year to think and talk about and be proud of. But I guess three things came to mind. The first was in partnership with our tech team, and I think Fumi mentioned this earlier. We did 68 releases last year that enhanced either the user experience, provide additional features, or fix some pain points in our digital offerings, our business online, our online banking, and our mobile app. And we were able to also introduce a brand new mobile and desktop experience for our business members digitally. So that's a thing we're all very proud of. I think the second thing, and you've heard about it earlier in the video if you were on, we launched in a very limited beta version the envelopes product, the BECU envelopes product, which essentially takes something very analog, putting cash into envelopes to save for different purposes, and makes it digital. So that was really, really good to get that in front of members and start to receive your feedback on that. More to come on that in just a minute when we talk about 22. Then the final thing is a little narrower, but really, really important. Last year, we launched a Braille and raised embossed Braille credit card. And although important for the part of the community that is blind and sight impaired, um, it's also a good example of something we're going to be constantly working at, which is essentially trying to make sure that all of BECU is available to all of our membership. And so again, a narrow thing, but really important to us. And we're really proud about that. So with that, with 21 behind us, Felicia, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. Thanks for sharing those highlights. Doug, I'm going to steal one of your quotes. We look back to look ahead. So we just looked back. Now as we look ahead, and we're already really in Q2 for 2022. Just curious, what's exciting both of you in your particular areas for this year? And Tom, do you want to start us off again?
Sure, I'd love to. On the social impact side, I am actually and really excited for the People Helping People Awards. Number one, it's most likely going to be in person. We've been virtual for the last couple of years. And it's, like I said, it's just a great opportunity for members to participate in our philanthropy efforts and to nominate nonprofits that they care about. And it's really inspiring to hear the stories and the impact that these nonprofits are making. So I'm really looking forward to that. On the marketing and brand front, two things stand out. It's been wonderful to see the growth of our relationship with KXP and the card we offer in terms of what that does for helping the public radio station. And we're excited this year to help them celebrate their 50th anniversary. We're going to have a very unique offering, I guess, promotion with them that features some of the great music that they've been a part of building over the last 50 years. But again, that's just been a phenomenal partnership. So I'm looking at how that expand. And then also later on this year, towards after the summer, late summer, we'll be launching a new brand campaign. And as in the past, it'll be featuring many of you, our members in these, talking about BUCU and the proof points in terms of how we're different compared to our competitors. So I'm looking forward to that. Doug, what's on your mind when you think about 2022?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Actually, the first thing that's on my mind is I didn't know about that KEXP promo. That sounds really exciting. So thanks for the update. More specific to our team, we're excited about a lot, but no surprise, continuing to expand what we offer to improve financial well-being, specifically the broad full release, the general release of the envelopes product I mentioned earlier. And then, and Tom, you mentioned that the power of the human delivered, if you will, financial health check. We're partnering with your team, as you know, to develop and deploy a digital version of that, so we can get that financial health check in front of far more members and to kind of deliver that at scale. That'll be coming later this year, and we're really pleased to see how it's sort of unfolding so far from what feedback we've had. On the pure digital front, if you will, we really want to just continue to do more faster. We want to deploy more features, more improvements to the user experience, more reduction of pain points, so that you can do more as members via that channel, and do that more quickly. And that's across our personal online banking offering, the business online banking that I mentioned we just launched late last year, and of course across our mobile app, which so many of you use out there. So those are just a few of the things we're excited about for 22. And with that, I think we're back over to you, Felicia. Am I right on?
You are. Thanks, Doug. So some really exciting things, and hopefully we do get moving faster. I know that's one of my desires as well. So now we're entering into question time, and Hazel May, I'm going to welcome her in, a colleague. She's going on her third session, so running the marathon tonight, Hazel May. Proud of you. So I believe we've got some questions already submitted. Do you have one ready to go?
I do. I'm actually going to recycle one from earlier session that we got some interesting responses on, but would love to hear from Tom and Doug. What have you learned this past year, either professionally or personally, as we slowly emerge from the pandemic?
Doug, do you want to take that one first?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I think the list of things I've learned, both at BECU and personally, is very, very long. So let me just offer up two. The first, and it relates to both BECU and the rest of my life. I'd say just the power of being this sort of odd paradox, the power of being flexible or agile, if you will, but with this persistent commitment to a purpose. And at BECU, of course, that's improving the financial well-being of our members and the communities we serve. But in the rest of my life, I have a different purpose. But that notion of just staying really flexible, but around this persistent purpose. And then the second is a little more obvious, I think, because we've all talked about this, but the value of, and this is from the digital person, by the way, the value of human interaction. I think, to varying degrees, we've all lived through not having that over the last couple of years. And so obviously absence makes us appreciate it when we have it. And so I'd say just the power of that human connection, and that's very true at the ECU. Actually, even with my colleagues on the EMT, but also certainly the rest of my life. So I'd say those are two of the learnings of a long, long list. Tom, I'm guessing you have some, knowing you.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Doug and I, we didn't script this out, and I when I think about last year or even the last couple of years, I really begin to value the importance of, at least in the workspace, the value of our purpose and values as really being a compass for the organization. Because here's something we all just are coming out of, something we have never experienced in our lives. Very new situation, very tragic situation in a lot of stories, and there's not a lot you can lean on that you've not lived this in the past, so you can't just say, oh, I know how to deal with this. But when you have a set of values or an organization that's grounded in a set of values and grounded in a purpose, that really does become your compass for how to make decisions, because you can't rely on past experience. And I think it really played out just the importance of that. It's very similar to a decade. The importance of having that grounding and working for an organization that's very grounded in that made a very tough time a bit more. We could at least know that we were doing the best we could, and we were trying to do the right thing. So I think that was very helpful. And I think likewise, what I appreciated, just the flexibility and nimbleness of folks to try to adapt to new situations all the time. And Doug, just to your point, I didn't have this down, but I had a team meeting, or involved with a team meeting yesterday, and it was the first time in 2.5 years where I'd seen this group in person. And to your point, the energy and the power of that was just almost overwhelming. It was so inspiring, really, just to be able to connect with people. And so, as great as this technology has been, it really does show that there's power in working face to face with people. It caught me off guard, quite honestly. I kind of had to pause in my words just to kind of soak it all in and really absorb what was going on.
That's great. And Tom, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that event might have included bowling. Do I have that?
Well, yeah, I'm not a good bowler, but that's true.
That's great.
Very
Great.
true.
Thanks for sharing those personal connection points of view. Very powerful. Hazel May, do we have a next question?
We do, and this one actually came directly from a member, and so I'm going to try to read it verbatim because I want to make sure I don't chop up their words. This particular member said, I prefer to do my banking online, but my dad prefers to come into a branch because he really likes the people. How do you stay focused on helping both of us?
Doug, I feel like that's one that you can take.
I'd love to start on that one. Certainly, Tom, you can chime in. I guess my answer maybe is in three parts. The first is, we start with the belief that both matter. The branch and the digital, and they do, and they matter for people regardless of how old they are, of their backgrounds, how long they've banked, so that's important. We also then, and this is kind of obvious, but to us, but we stay really focused on what jobs members want to do. If I want to go get cash for some reason, then I need to go do that to an ATM. So we need to offer ATMs. If I want to go have a more complicated dialogue or get some advice or get a financial health check with a person, I'll go to a financial center or a branch. If I want to check my deposit many, many times a day, as many of our members do, I'm going to use my mobile app and grab it while I have a moment in the midst of my life. And so I think the second thing is we are happy to let members do the job they want to do whenever and wherever they want to do it, but we need to make sure we keep making that easier and easier to do. And then the third thing is, finally, we acknowledge that they can work well together. I mean, the easy example, right? And Scott on the earlier call talked about an improvement to this, but if I can make an appointment, and you can, by the way, a plug, to go visit a financial center or a branch online, and so when I show up, that experience is better. I may not have to wait in the queue or a line. The member consultant is aware of what my needs are when I show up. It's a better experience for everyone. So that's a great example to me of how both matter, and when used well together can really make the experience better. So that's, I think, how we think about this. And we love the fact that our members get to choose. We don't for them. Tom, anything you'd add on that?
No, I think just we try to think about how our channels can be highly complementary to each other and work together, quite honestly. And we're not forcing, we want to, as Doug said, we want to provide, what makes sense for you in terms of the type of transaction. And Doug, I think you have, I know this is more the digital thing, but I think you have a saying that digital first, human always. We really want to either reflect that the humanity of our organization through our digital channels, but especially through uh, where we have teammates in our neighborhood financial centers or the contact center. So that does not change. That purpose and who we are as an organization doesn't change regardless of channel, or at least that's what we're trying to do, especially on the digital side.
Perfectly said. Thanks to both of you. Hazel May, next question.
Yes. Before we move on, I just want to say the jobs to be done is very member focused. And the way that you described that, I was like, wow, okay, I'm learning things. Thank you for that. So the next question is maybe a little bit geared toward Tom and your organization. What do you do? Oh, what we do for the community, excuse me, what BECU does for the community is great. But why don't you just return all that money directly to our members?
It's a great question. I've been asked that in the past. And there's a couple things. One, our first focus when we think about what we do with our money is we look at how we return money to our members through the form of better rates and lower fees or no fees. And you probably have heard, if you listen to the State of the Credit Union address, we have this thing called Return to Member, where we look at actually how much members are saving or earning compared to an average bank. And it's, in the neighborhood of about $250 per member on average. So there's a significant amount of money dollars that are flowing back to members directly through rates and fees. And just on a side note, the other way we could do that is through a patronage dividend like REI, but we tend to think about not doing that, just making sure it's reflected in our pricing all the time. The other piece, which folks may not realize, is that cooperatives, which BUCU is, operate following 7 cooperative principles. And number 7 is concern for the community. So by nature, cooperatives are looking for ways to improve their community because they believe if they do more in the community, it actually helps not only the community, but in the long run helps their members. So whether it's BECU or REI or PCC or Ocean Spray, we are all looking for ways we can give back to our community that we think are best applied, in terms of where we can make the most impact, because we think over the long run it helps the community as a whole, and it eventually makes a better place for our members to live. So I think those are 2 items. A big focus on direct give back through rates and fees, and then this overall philosophy about cooperatives and how we do business and how we engage with not only our members but our community.
Okay. Hazel May, do we have another question?
Yes. So this question, we have a lot of very direct member questions. So lucky you, Doug and Tom, for these particular ones. We had a few members ask about overdraft and non-sufficient funds fees. Specifically, when will BECU stop charging members overdraft and NSF fees?
Doug, I know you're very much engaged in that. Do you want to take that one?
No, we both are, but I'll jump in. And the question was when. The answer is this year. The slightly more specific answer is we're aware of the fact, of course, that the other institutions, other large banks and things have been making adjustments, or at least announced adjustments. So why aren't we doing it right now? What we want to do is look at other parts of the overdrafts, if you will, program the way it works, limit some of those things, and make sure that we're thinking about this a little more comprehensively. And so rather than simply either eliminating or reducing the fees, and we will be doing that, we want to look at the full program, decide what to do there, and then implement all of that at the same time. It will be later this year. How much later? Tough to say right now. I'd say second half for sure. But the short answer is absolutely. We believe it's the right thing to do, and we intend to do it.
Tom, do you have anything to add to that, or?
I think that was a significant decision for us. We knew it was the right thing to do, and I think I don't know how our competitors will eventually react to that or make up that income. I think BUC has a pretty long track record of reducing or eliminating fees. I know Doug has been very responsible, and you look at what we've done on the credit card side over the course of several years and the fees we've gotten rid of over time, to really going back to that return to member concept in terms of how we can leave more money in our members' wallet or purse.
All right, thanks to both of you. Hazel May, next question.
Yes. So this one I think is going to go toward Tom. And I know I personally have been involved with some of the shifts that are happening in your area around philanthropy. But this particular member asked, my daughter received a BECU scholarship a few years ago, which was a big help. Does that program still exist?
It does, and it's evolving. And I think that, and a little background, the foundation was started about 25 years ago based on a member suggestion to offer scholarships. And for the last 25 years or 24 years, it's been exclusively focused on scholarships to members. We are continuing that, but we are expanding the scope of the foundation beyond scholarships to look into more things we can impact on the financial health and equity side of things, tying back to what I talked about earlier. We are, the other change we're doing, we're going to be partnering with the College Success Foundation this coming year, which is a big step forward. We'll still be offering the same number of scholarships, but what the College Success Foundation does in terms of administering the program, when we have BUC members who are selected for the program, there's more wraparound services for them as they're going through school to make sure they're successful and helping them move towards graduation, whether it's a 4-year degree or a technical college. So it's just not going to be a check anymore. It's going to be check plus access to a lot of support. And this is, in my mind, this is really where we need to go, because money's great, but oftentimes there's a lot more things in there that folks are struggling with, and making sure they have the resources how to get through. And the College Success Foundation is set up to support students across the board on making sure they're successful towards graduation.
It's really exciting.
So yes, short answer, yes, it's still intact, but it's even going to be better.
It's evolving. All right, Hazel May, next question.
Yes. So we are, especially where most of us live, I would say, in the Western Washington area, we know we have lots of interesting innovation and technology happening with different major competitors and other groups, things that are like digital and humanless. So I don't want to mention a particular store where you can go in and just grab things and go, in other words, but what is BUCU doing to keep up with the pace of technology and people's demand for convenience and 24/7 access?
Maybe more toward a question for you. Do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I love that question. I think we're doing a number of things, and it starts with first principles, if you will. It starts with us collectively, and I think 2,500 of us collectively paying what I would call deep and close attention to the world, because you have to pay attention to the world to respond to it, right, or to anticipate it, or to react to it, preferably anticipate. That looks like listening deeply. Tom's team spends a lot of time on this, deeply to our members, day to day, literally day to day, listening through contact center sentiment, our net promoter scores, which some of you may be familiar with, all sorts of things that we kind of bundle up into our member listening post. And then we have a limited but still in place, market intelligence team that focuses out on the world at large, what's going on with Chime, what's going on with PayPal, what's going on with in the category. And then I think interestingly, and just cut me off, Hazel, if I get going, because I love this question. But interestingly, what's going on in other, what we would call categories, right? So the fact that, one of my favorite examples, Warby Parker, some of you may know they do glasses, right? And they started as a pure digital play. And then a while ago now, a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic, they started to add stores. And so, what can we learn from that? For example, there are hundreds of those examples. So deep and close attention to the world, looking for signals, trying to, call out what the noise is and listen to the signal. And then what do you do with it? Well, one thing we've done, and Tom and I partnered a lot on this actually, is adding humans, right, people, capabilities to the organization. And the two folks besides Tom and I on this call are good examples of that, who know how to work differently, who know how to innovate, to be forward leaning and forward thinking. And in some cases, it's a more narrow skill set. So for example, our user experience team, that whole adage, it's not useful if it's not usable. So we have a whole team, and that team is much larger now than it was even a year ago, let alone 2 years ago, to make sure that as we deploy things, put them out in our members' hands and lives, that they are more useful. And if they're not, we quickly iterate. We just did that actually with the business online banking launch to make sure they are. And then finally, of course, and Fumi spoke to this earlier, that's all great, but if we don't have a technology, platform or stack, whatever you want to call it, that won't enable that, that's all just academic. And so Fumi and team are doing a tremendous job of, as I say, modernizing, for lack of a better word, all the technology that we have to use, whether it's buy build, to make those experiences specifically digitally. And I'm talking a lot about digital, but of course the same thing matters for our human experiences, back to the examples we talked about earlier. So that's a very long answer to a short question, but the short answer is, we think it's vital, and we intend to make sure we stay relevant by doing all that. But I know, Tom, you have some thoughts on this as well.
Well, I think one thing that we just at a high level, I like to think about the cooperative model as being a really good innovation platform, because we operate between the for-profit world and the charity world, and we can think about things differently. We really take the long view. So, and especially when we combine that with our purpose in terms of how do we really think about improving the financial well-being of our members. We can, work with, the teams that Doug have are just, you saw it in the video, maybe just how they're changing their work. We're using human-centered design. We're using behavioral science for good, I like to think, in terms of really helping people achieve their financial goals, but even just make small changes that help them, budget better or save more. I talked about the financial health check, that program in which we're digitizing, that combines data, human-centered design, and behavioral science to help people to remove the barriers people have from starting savings habits, to make it easy for them. I think, Doug, just even some of the innovations we've launched, with Quick Save, for example, just where we're making it so simple for people to save a small amount very easily. So you're coming into mobile banking. I mean, just things like that. Just small, those what seem to be small innovations actually can have a significant disproportionate impact in terms of for folks in the long run. So it's just like I said, I think the co-op model provides a different lens to view the world, because we're not doing it to make as much money or money on it. We obviously have to sustain ourselves, as Melba talked about earlier, but at the end of the day, we exist for our members' benefit, and specifically to try to improve your financial well-being.
That was a great question. It really brought out the passion you both have in this space. And Tom, I love that you centered that around the purpose of the credit union. And really that's what's driving the innovation that we're going after. So great question, Hazel May. Any more in the bank?
That old question bank. Nope.
Yes. We have a live question. Thank you to our member Karen. Am I breaking up?
You're breaking up a little bit.
I'm going to ask the question from Karen.
Okay.
What is litigation?
I heard climate change. Was it?
Is that a little better now? No. Yes.
Can you try going again?
Give it a shot.
I'm going to try it one more time.
I think it's sustainability. What is it? What are we doing to support sustainability and
okay? It's something I'll guess at the question and see how close the answer is. So a couple of things to start with. We have been tracking for BSU, the co-op. We've been tracking our carbon emissions for more than a dozen years. We kind of enhanced our measurement capabilities in the last year, working with a group called Impacti to further refine that. So that's our baseline. And during the pandemic, we actually, no surprise, we saw significant improvements, because one of our biggest sources of carbon is folks driving to work. And with our hybrid model, we expect a lot of that to continue in the future. So one of our larger carbon emissions is being cut down. But over the course of the year, I mean, in the past, we've continued to look at what we can do, everything from paper reduction to the materials we're using in remodels, to the types of paint, to the types of carpet, all those things. We've introduced composting, recycling in our major facilities. So all those things are in place. I think going forward, we are looking at how we can adapt an ESG framework. We've used GRI in the past, and all their indicators. We're broadening that to adapt a broader ESG framework. We have a more dedicated resources around this in terms of what we need to do. I think that the extension of this eventually goes into our membership, right? Are there things we can be doing from products and services that would help encourage folks to add sustainability features to their house, to their car purchase, things that's a longer term, but those are ideas. So I think we're being enhancing our abilities in reporting, and also putting together stronger plans for the future. We do right now, and I know this is not the answer, we do offset a fair amount of our carbon through our program with Forterra, but that's not a solution in the long run. We need to make fundamental changes, and I think that as you measure things, that becomes more and more apparent. And I think the efforts through the ESG framework and things like that will, put that even more front and center than they are already right now. So I hope that was within the ballpark of the question.
Seems like.
I think it was.
Do you mind, before we go on, I just was going to add, Tom, and you mentioned, I think we need to do even more, and that's probably my team, on products that will reinforce / encourage / enhance that on a more fundamental way. I think much more narrowly, but still important. We just launched on a pilot basis the ability to have an ocean plastic or a recycled plastic card, and that by itself is not what you're talking about, but it's another step towards BECU enabling our members to also help out with this really, really important topic. So I just wanted to kind of pop that in there before.
No, absolutely. I should have led with that, because that just is very very, very recent. So I mean, things like that, those are all going to be important. We have calculated the carbon impact of all of our auto lending, for example. It's obviously a much bigger number than looking at folks coming to work. So I think that type of awareness can drive how we think about what we want to do in the future, just really looking more broadly at our impact.
Great. All right, Hazel May, I think we're getting close to our time. So do you want to pick maybe one last question for us?
Sure. And I apologize for our member, Karen. My internet went out a little bit. So I think Tom and Doug did a wonderful job answering your question. And I personally am so excited about the ocean plastic card. I signed up immediately for that pilot, and it'll be wonderful to see how that continues to help with the sustainability efforts that we have. We do have a question that came in actually during our State of the Credit Union address earlier today. And this particular member asked, I also belong to Navy Federal Credit Union, Bank of America, and USAA Bank. All provide free checks to its members. When do you think BEC will provide the same service in the future?
I'd be happy to answer. I guess the first part of my answer is, gosh, we'd love to have you do all that stuff you do with them with us. But maybe the answer is when you get free checks. I think this is a great example, and you've heard about it over the course of the evening, around how we have to constantly balance where we will invest in return to member, or what's good for member, the organization, and sort of the world we live in. And the answer is, just to level set, we don't offer free checks on any of our checking accounts. What we did do is, in recognition of the fact that in some ways this is actually good for the environment at large, most members, not all, many members are using far, far fewer checks. In fact, just the other day, I was talking to someone who literally, younger, admittedly, did not know how to write a check. I had to give them a little instruction on what to put in what field. So that's an indicator that this is going down. For those that do, and there are many, including this member, I'm sure, that's asked this question, it still matters. And so what we decided to do instead, because we could have made them free, they cost us something, we'd have to find a different way to offset that. Instead of that, we now offer, I think it's called a mini pack or a small pack. It's basically half as, because if you order 200 checks and you only use 3 a month, you'll never get through them. So we decided rather than offering free, smaller package, half the price of prior, and that was our way of acknowledging that check usage is down. Why make that an expensive thing for our members? But clearly not the same as free. Wouldn't pretend otherwise. But it's the way we've responded to that. I appreciate the question, and it's always good to have that kind of feedback.
That's great. Hazel, I think we may have time for one other quickie, if you've got one ready.
Yeah, this one I'm excited to chat about, and this one will go a little bit more toward Tom. As a cooperative and as a credit union, we do a lot in our community, as you all have described, and many of our leaders have described. One of the things that we do is an annual event where we go out and actually teach money management to high schools and local schools. When will that start up again, or what will that kind of efforts will look like where we utilize our employee base?
Yeah, great question, because those are, have been a part of our offering for a very long time. I think we will look at when we do those in person. What we're realizing, there's a fair amount of demand for the virtual sessions, believe it or not. And just like with this event, we actually can host a lot more people at this event than in-person one, although we'll probably bring this back in a hybrid thing. But so we'll continue. So I guess the answer is hybrid. There will be situations where we do go into classes, depending on the nature of the class, and then a lot of them will be delivered just like what we're doing here. So that will continue.
All right, thanks, Tom. Well, that wraps up this session. Wanted to let everyone know if your question didn't get asked and answered, there's still an opportunity. If you didn't get to submit it, you can email that into communityrelations@becu.org. And Hazel May, I think you're going to put that into the chat so everyone has it. Just want to thank Hazel May especially. I know this has been a marathon for you tonight, and our hosts, Doug and Tom. You did a great job, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, so I know our audience did as well. There is a survey below at the bottom of the screen, and we do ask everyone to take that if you have time tonight. Definitely take that feedback to heart and try to listen to your thoughts and comments to improve these sessions going forward. This does conclude the breakout sessions for tonight, but we invite you to join us on the homepage for our closing keynote speaker. That's going to start in just a little bit. And I wish you all a very good sunny evening here in Seattle. Good night.
Thank you all.